They laughed at the millionaire who got a homeless woman pregnant. But what he revealed 2 years later changed everything. Henry Collins observed the scene around him, absorbed in a sea of laughter and champagne flutes. The party at his mansion was a spectacle of lights and glamour, but to him everything felt like a blur of superficiality. People danced, greeted each other, and exchanged empty compliments while he sat in a corner, his drink almost untouched. "What am I doing here?" he thought, his heart heavy. He felt a profound disconnection from those interactions, as if he were watching a movie in which he played no part. "Henry, you can't just sit there, come join us." An animated voice pulled him from his thoughts. It was Michael, his longtime friend, who dragged him into the crowd. "Look, there's an incredible woman over there. You need to meet her." Henry forced a smile, trying to engage, but the truth was that his mind wandered. He didn't care about the stunning women or the business discussions swirling around him. What he truly wanted was a sense of purpose, something that made him feel alive. After a few minutes of trying to integrate, Henry decided he needed some fresh air. He slipped away from the party, seeking refuge in his library, one of the few places where he felt comfortable. The enveloping silence welcomed him as he sank into one of the sofas, his gaze lost among the shelves filled with books. "Why am I so unhappy?" he wondered, flipping through a book without focus. "I have everything anyone could want. Or do I?" In a moment of reflection, his memories took him back to a time long past when he was still a child. He recalled his parents, always absent, more concerned with their careers than his well-being. Birthday parties were always filled with expensive gifts, but their presence was a rarity. "Henry, what do you want for a gift?" they would ask. But what he truly desired was for them to be there, to share a moment, a laugh, a hug. Flashbacks of his childhood flooded his mind. He saw himself sitting alone at a birthday table, surrounded by children he didn't know, trying to hide the sadness that invaded his heart. "Why am I not enough for them?" he thought, the question echoing in his soul. He remembered one party where, instead of laughter, there were tears. His tears as his parents chatted on the phone, ignoring his existence. Their indifference shaped his life, creating a wall of loneliness he carried to this day. Henry returned to the present with a heavy sigh. "I need to change this," he murmured to himself. He stood up and decided that perhaps if he engaged in philanthropy, he could find some form of connection and meaning. However, even as he participated in charity events and made generous donations, the emptiness continued to consume his soul. He found himself at lavish dinners, surrounded by people who only cared about image and social status. "This isn't what I want," he confessed to Michael during one of those occasions as they observed the superficial atmosphere around them. "I'm trying to find a purpose, but all of this feels so empty." Michael looked at him with a mix of concern and understanding. "Henry, you have to open yourself up to the world. These people may be superficial, but you can make a difference. If you really want to change, start connecting with those in need." Michael's words left him pondering, but deep down he knew he needed something more, something that would pull him out of his bubble. With one last glance at the party, Henry decided he needed to leave, to find something that truly mattered. He didn't yet know how, but his journey in search of meaning was just beginning. On a rainy, gray day in London, Emily Thompson leaned against a cold wall, watching the raindrops glide down the worn surface. The city around her seemed to ignore her, immersed in its own rush, while she struggled against the dampness and fatigue that life on the streets imposed. The smell of rain mixed with urban waste was familiar, but at that moment, it was almost suffocating. In her mind, memories of her childhood emerged like shadows, moments of warmth and laughter that now felt so distant. "Why did all this happen?" she thought, closing her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to feel the vulnerability she often tried to hide. The image of her parents, always busy, always absent, haunted her. "I just wanted a little love, that's all," she murmured to herself, her voice barely audible among the sounds of the rain. As the cold wind cut across her skin, Emily heard voices nearby. A group of homeless people had gathered on a corner trying to warm themselves under a makeshift shelter. She approached hesitantly, but soon felt drawn to the warm conversation echoing among them. "You won't believe what happened to Dave," said a disheveled man, a smile reflecting a bit of joy amid the sadness. "He found a lost dog, and now it's his best friend." The others laughed, and Emily found herself smiling too. "It's always like that, isn't it?" she chimed in, stepping closer. "When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Or in this case, a furry friend. Exactly, replied an older woman, her gaze kind. We learn to find happiness in the little things. Sometimes all we need is a bit of hope. Emily admired that woman's strength. How do you keep going? She asked, curiosity and admiration shining through her voice. With everything that's happened? With so many struggles? The woman looked her in the eyes, her expression serious. Because, dear, life doesn't end until you decide it does. You still have a future ahead of you, even if it doesn't seem like it right now. Never lose faith. Those words resonated with Emily as if she had been hit by a wave of determination. She wanted to believe there was something more beyond those cold streets. As they talked, a moment of connection enveloped her, and she remembered a note she had found the night before while searching for food on a park bench. The simple message, full of encouragement, read, "Believe in yourself. Every day is a new chance." With a shy smile, she pulled the note from her pocket, holding it between her fingers. "I found this last night. Sometimes it's all we need, a reminder that we can change." The woman's eyes lit up. "That's right. It's like someone is saying you are stronger than you think." Emily tucked the note back away, now a symbol of hope on her journey. Despite the difficulties she faced, she felt there was a light, however small, at the end of the tunnel. She just needed to find a way to reach her. As she stepped away from the group, a new determination pulsed in her heart. Walking through the rain-soaked streets, observing the bustling city around her, she realized that even amidst the darkness, there was space for dreams and fresh starts. And although the memories of her past haunted her, the hope for a better future began to grow within her. Henry walked through the streets of London, still immersed in the superficial atmosphere of the party he had left behind. He felt that the life he led made no sense, as if every smile and every toast were just empty echoes of a world where he did not belong. The cold night breeze wrapped around him, but he was more concerned with the loneliness that accompanied him than with the chill in the air. As he turned a corner, he noticed a dark corner where the streetlight did not reach. It was there that his eyes found Emily. She was leaning against a wall, wrapped in a tattered blanket that barely kept her warm. Her unkempt hair and smudged makeup showed the signs of a hard life, but there was something in her gaze that immediately captured Henry's attention. There was a depth in her eyes, an untold story that drew him in like a magnet. Hesitant, he approached her, his heart racing with every step. "Hi," Henry said, his voice a mix of curiosity and caution. "Are you okay?" Emily looked up, surprised. It wasn't common for strangers to care about her. Watching him, she noticed the discomfort on his face, as if he were out of place there. "I'm surviving," she replied, a sad smile playing on her lips. "And you? What's a man like you doing here at this hour?" Henry laughed nervously, trying to dissipate the tension. He didn't know how to define himself. A lost millionaire? A man in search of something greater? He wasn't sure. I came from a party, but it wasn't what I expected." He hesitated, thinking about his words. "I used to think these events were where I belonged, but now, it all seems so empty." Emily watched him for a moment as if trying to decipher his intentions. What could a man like him understand about emptiness? Yet there was something genuine in his tone, something that piqued her curiosity. "And what do you hope to find here?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. The question caught him off guard. He didn't have a clear answer. Henry looked down, pondering the words that would come out of his mouth. "I don't know. Maybe a bit of humanity?" He took a step closer, feeling more comfortable in her presence. Sometimes it feels like no one cares, like everyone is just passing by, living their lives without looking to the side. Emily smiled, understanding shining in her eyes. He was speaking the truth. In that moment, they were in such different worlds, yet still connected by an invisible thread of solitude. "You're not the first to say that," Emily said, lowering her gaze. "Many pass by here and don't look at us. To them, we are invisible." Henry felt a weight in the conversation, a sadness that seemed to echo in her words. He began to understand that Emily was not just a homeless woman. She was a symbol of everything he wished to change in his life. "I would like to help," he said, deciding in that instant that he wanted to do more than just listen. "Can I offer you something to eat? A warm coat?" Emily looked at him, surprised. Most people who passed by rarely offered genuine help. "You don't have to do that," she replied, hesitating. "I want to," he insisted, feeling an inexplicable urge to care for her. "Please accept it." She finally gave in, a shy smile forming on her lips. Henry pulled a sandwich from his backpack and handed it to her, followed by a blanket he had in his car. The simple gesture, yet laden with meaning, made them both feel the growing connection between them. "Thank you," Emily said, her eyes sparkling. "You're different from the others, and you're different from what I expected to find here," Henry replied, feeling a wave of emotion. "I never thought I could feel so alive, talking to someone on the streets." In the following weeks, Henry became a regular visitor to that dark corner, increasingly intrigued by Emily's life and strength. They talked about dreams and fears, and her vulnerability made him open up about his own insecurities. With each meeting, he felt something in his life was changing, that a purpose was forming from that unlikely connection. Henry and Emily walked through the streets of London, where the city lights sparkled like stars in a dark sky. The air was crisp, and the gentle breeze provided a temporary relief from the tension that had filled Henry's heart in recent days. They stepped away from the chaos of gala parties and social expectations, seeking a moment of tranquility that had become rare in their lives.
"Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in a place where there's only light and warmth?" Emily asked, her gaze lost in the illuminated windows of the buildings around them. Her eyes sparkled with a hope that Henry found inspiring, even though he knew reality was very different for her. "Sometimes I wonder if I've ever been there," Henry replied, keeping the tone light, but feeling the weight of the truth hidden behind his words.
"I think I've lost the ability to see the light in my own life." Emily stopped and looked at him, her face close enough for him to see the determination reflected in her eyes. "You can still find it, Henry. You just have to want to," she said, with a conviction that made his heart race. "And maybe you don't need to search so far. Sometimes the light is closer than we think." Henry smiled, admiring her strength. He had never known someone so resilient, someone who could still dream amidst adversity. "And if you could have all that, a home, a future, what would you wish for?" He wanted to know more about her dreams and hopes. "A safe place," Emily replied without hesitation. "A place where I can create a home for myself and, who knows, maybe one day for a family. A place where I can smile without fear that tomorrow will bring only more pain." She looked down, as if the words had hurt her. "You deserve that, Emily, and I will do my best to help you get there," Henry said, feeling determination grow within him. It was a commitment he knew he wanted to honor, not just for her, but for himself. In that moment, as they walked side by side, Henry realized that the connection between them had become deeper than he had imagined. Each shared laugh, every story told, seemed to weave an invisible bond that united them in an unbreakable way. One night, as they sat in a park, Emily looked up at the starry sky. "You know, when I was a kid, I used to look at the stars and make wishes. One of them was always to have a different life, far from the streets. But somehow, I never thought that could really happen." "And now?" Henry asked, curious about what was going through her mind. "Now I just wish people could see beyond what's on the surface," she replied, her voice soft. "That they could see we're more than our mistakes and circumstances, that we can change, that we can have hope." Henry fell silent, pondering his own struggles and how his life had changed since meeting Emily. He felt more alive than ever. "You are hope, Emily. You've shown me what it truly means to live, and I want to be part of your story, not as a savior but as a partner." Emily smiled, a smile that lit up her face in a way Henry had never seen before. It was a genuine smile, full of possibilities. "Do you really mean that?" "Every word," he affirmed, feeling the sincerity in his heart. He leaned in a little closer, and in a moment of vulnerability their lips met in a soft kiss. It was a moment that felt suspended in time, as if the world around them had vanished. However, the joy of that moment was quickly overshadowed by a revelation Emily hadn't anticipated. With her heart racing, she looked at Henry, her voice trembling. "Henry, I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air, and Henry felt as if the ground beneath his feet had crumbled. "Pregnant?" he repeated, trying to process the enormity of what he had just heard. "Are you sure?" Emily nodded, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I took the test. I didn't want to believe it, but it's true." That's amazing," Henry said, his mind racing at lightning speed. The reality of what this meant for both of them was overwhelming. "Are you okay? How do you feel?" "Scared, but also a little hopeful," she replied, the insecurity evident in her tone. "I don't know what to do next." Henry took her hand, holding it firmly. "We'll do this together. No matter what happens, we'll be together. You're not alone in this." As the night wore on, they sat in silence, absorbing the new reality unfolding before them. Both of their lives were about to change in ways they had never imagined. But in that moment, the only certainty was the love growing between them, stronger than any challenge the future could bring. Henry was in a whirlwind of emotions. The news of Emily's pregnancy hit him like a lightning bolt, challenging all his convictions about the life he led and what truly mattered. He found himself in his luxurious penthouse, surrounded by an oppressive silence that contrasted sharply with the smiles and laughter from the last party he had thrown. The crystal glasses were still set on the table, but he had no desire for the ostentation that had once seemed so essential. Now his mind was focused on Emily and the future she might bring. On impulse, he decided to call his friend Tom, one of the few who still stood by him despite his recent choices. "Tom, can you come over? I need to talk to you," Henry asked, his voice trembling with anxiety. The response was swift. "Sure, buddy. I'm on my way." When Tom arrived, he found Henry sitting on the couch, head down and hands clasped. "What's wrong, Henry? You look like a ghost," Tom said as he sat down beside him. Henry took a deep breath, the pressure in his chest mounting. "Emily's pregnant," he revealed, looking at the floor. "I don't know what to do." Tom fell silent for a moment, processing the information. Wow. How do you feel about it?" he asked, trying to understand the situation. Henry finally looked up, and the intensity of his gaze made Tom shrink back a little. "I can't just leave her. I can't do what my father would do," he said, recalling his father's cold and calculating words. "But my world, everything I've built, does it even make sense now?" "Listen, Henry," Tom began, his tone more serious. "You need to think about what you really want. How do you feel about her? What do you want for your future? Don't let others decide for you." Henry pondered this, recalling the moments he spent with Emily, the laughter, the deep conversations, and the vulnerabilities they shared. A part of him wanted to run and embrace the new reality, while another part feared society's reaction. "You don't understand, Tom. High society will destroy me for this. They'll see me as a traitor. What could I possibly offer a child growing up in that environment?" Henry stood up, pacing nervously around the room. "I don't want Jack, our son, to grow up under the weight of disdain and criticism. If you really love Emily and that child, then face it. Don't let fear dictate your decisions. You're stronger than that, Henry," Tom replied, trying to encourage his friend. But doubt still hung over Henry. What if it doesn't work out? What if everything falls apart? A heavy silence hung between them until Henry finally sat back down, his gaze more resolute. "I can't leave Emily alone. She needs me, and I need her." Determination began to take shape within him, warming his heart. "I'm going to take on this fatherhood. I'll bring Emily to live here in the penthouse. I want to build a life with her." Tom smiled, a mix of relief and support on his face. "Is that what you really want? Then do it. Forget what others will think. You have to live for yourself and your family now." Henry felt adrenaline surge through his veins. "Yes, that's what I want. I'll face them no matter what they say. Emily deserves this, and so does our child." He stood up, determined. "I'm going to talk to her." That same night, Henry went to where Emily usually stayed. He found her curled up in her blanket, her eyes brightening when she saw him. "Henry, what are you doing here?" she asked, surprised. "I needed to see you. We need to talk," he said, determination evident in his voice. "I want you to come live with me. I want to take care of you and our child." Emily looked at him, her eyes wide, and a mix of joy and disbelief washed over her face. "Are you serious?" "Yes, very serious. I don't want you to face this alone. We'll face it together, as a family." Emily's heart raced. It felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "I never imagined this could happen. Do you really want to do this?" "I do, Emily, and I'm ready to face the world for you and our son," he replied, holding her hand. In that moment, their connection deepened and hope began to shine, even amid the uncertainties ahead. With a shy smile, Emily responded, "Then, let's do this together." Henry and Emily's lives took an unexpected turn. With the birth of Jack, their newborn son, they were facing a new reality filled with challenges and joys. Henry awoke early every day, no longer preparing for lavish social events, but attending to the needs of his new family. He watched Emily fondly as she changed their baby's diaper, her face illuminated by the soft morning light. "You're an amazing mother, you know," he said one morning, cradling Jack in his arms while Emily prepared a simple porridge. She smiled, her eyes sparkling with the happiness that came from motherhood. "Thank you, Henry. I just want him to have a better future than I had," Emily replied, a touch of nostalgia in her voice. "A future where he doesn't have to go through the hardships I faced." The routine was intense, but they were adapting. Emily dedicated herself to caring for the baby, while Henry tried to balance his new family life with the challenges of stepping away from the world of luxury. However, the social pressure was palpable. He felt watched, like an artist on stage, with all the eyes of London's high society fixed on him, ready to criticize any misstep. One afternoon, while walking the streets of London with Emily and Jack, they were approached by one of Henry's former business partners, Richard. The man in his impeccable suit and cynical expression seized the opportunity to make a jab. "Henry, look at you. What happened to the sophisticated millionaire we used to know?" Richard said, a sarcastic smile on his lips. "Now you're here pushing a baby stroller and living with a, well, you know." Henry felt a chill run down his spine but maintained his composure. "I'm living with the woman I love and our son, and that's more meaningful to me than any amount of money or status," he replied, his voice firm yet slightly trembling. Emily sensed the tension in the air and squeezed Henry's hand, offering him silent support. "And the life you live isn't nearly as fulfilling as ours, Richard," she added, looking directly into the man's eyes. "At least we have love and purpose." Richard frowned, surprised by her response. "Love? Is that what you think will sustain you? The world doesn't care about love stories, Henry. You're isolating yourself. Go back to what you know or you'll regret it." Henry took a deep breath, feeling the pressure mount. "The only thing I regret is not making this change sooner. The life I led left me empty. Now I have something real to fight for," he declared, already feeling his resolve strengthen within him. As Richard walked away, muttering something about a crisis of identity, Henry turned to Emily, who was watching him with a mix of concern and pride. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft. "I am. In fact, I feel stronger than ever. What matters is that we have each other and our son. No matter what people say," he affirmed, wrapping his arms around them. "We will get through this together." As the days passed, the pressure of his choice began to intensify. London society wasn't just watching, they were reacting. Henry started receiving hostile messages on social media, and rumors about his relationship with Emily spread like wildfire. He felt increasingly isolated, but Emily's presence always grounded him. One night, while they were at home, Henry looked at Emily, who was nursing Jack. "I feel like I'm fighting an endless battle, but at the same time, having you and Jack here gives me strength," he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. "It's a struggle, but you're not alone, Henry. We're in this together," Emily replied, looking into his eyes with a determination he admired. "And no matter what happens, we will stand strong." The daily struggle for acceptance and recognition of their new life made them stronger. They knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but the bond they had built was unbreakable. Together they would face the world and show that even amid adversity, love and solidarity could prevail. Henry was nervous. 2 years had passed since he decided to change the direction of his life, and now the moment had come to share his journey with the world. He stood in an elegant event hall in London, surrounded by journalists, photographers, and representatives of high society. The bright lights reflected his anxiety, but he knew it was time to speak, not just about himself, but about the love that transformed his life. He took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage, his heart pounding in his chest. The audience fell silent as he began to speak. "Thank you all for being here today," he started, his voice trembling slightly. 2 years ago, I was a lost man in a world of superficiality. I had everything, but I felt that nothing had value. That's when I met Emily." Murmurs rose from the front rows. Henry could sense the curiosity and skepticism in the air, but he pressed on, determined. "Emily is an incredible woman. She taught me that true wealth isn't in money but in love and compassion. She lived on the streets, faced unimaginable challenges, and yet never lost hope." He paused, looking at Emily, who sat in the audience, her eyes shining with pride and love. "Today, I want to share with you not just my story, but the idea that emerged from this transformation. I want to open a network of charitable restaurants where homeless individuals can work and rebuild their lives, a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect." The reactions were mixed. Some people applauded, while others exchanged doubtful glances. A reporter raised his hand. "Henry, don't you think this is just a way to redeem yourself? Society may not accept this change well, Henry didn't hesitate. I believe everyone deserves a second chance, and I am living proof that love can transform us. I'm not seeking approval. I want to create a positive impact in the world. If I can help even one person find a new path, it will all be worth it. Another journalist asked a pointed question. But Henry, don't you fear this will affect your business? The high society might see this as a decline in standards. He smiled, a sincere smile that reflected his new determination. The real decline in standards is ignoring the suffering of others. If my decision to help the less fortunate affects my business, then perhaps I should rethink what I truly value. What matters is the legacy I will leave and the impact I can have on people's lives. As the press conference continued, Henry noticed that support was starting to grow. Many people began to ask questions about how they could help, and he felt energized. He was shaping a new narrative, not just for his life, but for the entire city of London. He looked again at Emily, who now had tears in her eyes. She stood up and with an emotional voice said, "Henry, you're not just changing your life, but the lives of so many others. Together we can show that solidarity is true wealth." The room erupted in applause, and Henry felt he was on the right path. He knew the journey would be long and full of challenges, but he was willing to face them. With Emily by his side, he was sure he could make a difference. "I'm here to stay," he concluded, looking out at the audience, "and I hope you'll join me on this mission. Together, let's create a world where everyone has the opportunity to start over." The energy in the room was palpable, and Henry felt that, finally, the story of him and Emily was just beginning to be told. Henry and Emily were in a moment of transformation, both in their personal lives and in the way they viewed the world around them. After months of struggles and victories, they were finally ready to take a significant step, one that would not only change their lives, but also the lives of many others facing similar hardships. Henry's idea of opening a network of solidarity restaurants began to take shape, and excitement was in the air. On a sunny morning in the small apartment they now called home, Henry looked at Emily, who was busy preparing breakfast. He had a contagious energy, and his eyes sparkled with determination. "Emily, I really feel like we're ready for this. Let's do something big," he said, mixing ingredients in a bowl. "Are you serious, Henry? This could change everything," Emily replied, a gentle smile on her face but a hint of concern in her voice. "This isn't just an idea, it's a commitment, and you know how skeptical people can be." "Yes, I know," he affirmed, taking her hand and holding it. "But if we don't try, we'll never know. We can offer jobs, dignity, and more importantly, hope to so many people who feel lost. And I want you by my side because you are the reason this matters so much to me." With Emily's support, Henry began to structure his idea. They met with influential people and sought partnerships with charitable organizations. Henry used his network and his restaurant industry experience to attract the necessary attention. Enthusiasm grew, and soon they were ready to open the first restaurant. On the day of the inauguration, a crowd gathered outside the new restaurant, which had been renovated from an abandoned space. The walls were decorated with art from local artists, and there were outdoor tables where people could sit and enjoy a meal while feeling welcomed. Henry and Emily were nervous, but the anticipation was palpable. "It's all so beautiful, Henry. You really made this happen," Emily said, admiring the environment. "I never thought I'd see something like this. And this is just the beginning, my love. Look at how many people came," he replied, watching the crowd. Among the guests were friends, supporters, and of course, many who needed a second chance. "Let's welcome everyone." When the ceremony began, Henry stepped onto the stage and took the microphone. He was nervous, but his passion was evident. "Thank you all for being here. This restaurant is not just a place to eat. It's a space of welcome and solidarity. Here, we'll not only serve meals but also provide opportunities for many who need a fresh start," he said, his voice strong and full of emotion. "I'm so happy to have Emily by my side, my partner on this journey." Applause echoed through the air as Emily smiled, her heart overflowing with pride. She knew that this moment was a turning point not only for them, but for the entire community. As the weeks passed, the new restaurant began to gain recognition. Henry and Emily were actively involved, hiring homeless individuals and offering training. One day, while they worked together in the kitchen, Emily turned to him and said, "Look at how these people are transforming. They're so happy to have a purpose." "That's what I wanted, Emily. To see people regain their dignity and hope," Henry replied, picking up a tray of dishes. "It's not just about food. It's about giving people a place where they can feel respected." One day, while serving meals, an elderly man approached Emily. With an emotional look, he said, "Thank you. This place has given me more than a meal. It has given me hope." The man's words deeply affected Emily, and she felt the weight of the responsibility they bore. "We're just getting started," Henry told her, watching the interaction. "Imagine how many lives we can still change. This is only the beginning of our journey." Henry and Emily's story quickly spread through the media, and their Solidarity restaurant became a symbol of hope and change. They were challenging prejudices and creating a new path, not just for themselves, but for everyone who had ever felt invisible. With each smile they received, they saw that despite the difficulties, love and solidarity could truly prevail. Henry was at home, sitting at the kitchen table, watching the sunlight streaming in through the window. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, but he could hardly appreciate it. The unexpected visit from his parents left him anxious and restless. He knew that their presence could bring up old wounds he had tried to heal. Emily sat across the table with Jack on her lap, playfully engaging with the little boy. She noticed the tension on Henry's face, and with a gentle smile asked, "Is everything okay, love? You seem distant." Henry took a deep breath, trying to muster the courage. He knew that his parents' visit wasn't just a courtesy. They were coming to try to convince him to return to his former life, to the luxurious world he had left behind. "I'm just thinking about what might happen," he replied, his words heavy with concern. "My mom and dad have always been so strict about the choices I've made. They won't understand." Emily let Jack play with a toy and leaned closer to him, holding his hand. "They need to know who you've become, what you've built here with us. You're a different man now, Henry." The doorbell rang, breaking the tense silence that had settled in. Henry's heart raced. He exchanged a nervous glance with Emily, and before he could prepare himself, he stood up and opened the door. His parents were there, expressions ranging from surprise to disapproval. "Henry!" his mother exclaimed, her voice filled with emotion. "We were worried about you." "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Dad." "Come in," he replied, trying to keep calm. As they stepped inside, the atmosphere in the house shifted. Henry's parents exchanged glances, noting the simple and cozy decor, so different from what they were used to. His mother looked at Jack, who was smiling innocently, and said, "He's so cute, but where are the things? The furniture? The luxury?" "Luxury isn't what matters," Henry replied, his voice steady. "What matters is happiness, and here I've found that." His father, an imposing businessman, wasted no time. "Henry, you need to go back to what you were doing. This lifestyle," he gestured towards the living room, "this isn't for you. You're a Collins, and your family expects more from you. And I'm not just a Collins anymore. I'm a father and a partner. Emily and Jack are my family now, and I won't give that up," Henry asserted. Anger began to bubble within him, but he struggled to maintain his composure. The disappointment on his parents' faces was palpable. His mother, with tears in her eyes, asked, "Henry, don't you miss who you were? Your success? Your status?" "What I felt was loneliness, Mom. A deep loneliness, even when surrounded by people. Here with Emily and Jack, I feel whole. I don't need anything else." Emily, who had remained silent until then, decided to intervene. "Your son has become an incredible man. He's not the person you once knew. He's helping those in need, and that's a great achievement. Far more than any fortune," she said, her voice firm. Henry's parents exchanged confused glances. He could sense their internal struggle, the attempt to understand their son's new reality. "But what about business? What are you going to do?" his father insisted, visibly concerned. "I'm going to continue what I started. I'm creating a network of Solidarity restaurants to help people in situations like Emily's. That's more important than any business I've done before," Henry explained, determination in his tone. "And if it fails?" his mother asked, her voice trembling. "You can't just throw everything away like this. What about us? Don't you care about what we're going through?" "Of course I care, but I can't live the life you planned for me anymore. I'm responsible for my own happiness now, and I won't let fear hold me back," Henry replied, finally releasing the frustration he had been holding in. In that moment, he realized he didn't need his parents' approval. He had found his own path and was ready to defend it, even if it meant breaking ties with the past. The silence that followed was heavy, but also liberating. Henry finally felt free to be who he truly was, and he felt ready to face any challenges that lay ahead. During the inauguration ceremony of one of Henry's Solidarity restaurants, an atmosphere of expectation and emotion hung in the air. The guests, a mix of supporters, friends, and community members, celebrated what they saw as a milestone in the fight against inequality and prejudice. Henry, in his well-fitted suit, looked at the faces surrounding him, feeling immense pride in what he had built alongside Emily. Beside him, she radiated joy, holding little Jack in her arms as they surveyed the space that now symbolized hope for many. However, the tranquility of the ceremony was shattered when a woman rushed in, her hair disheveled and wearing simple clothes that contrasted sharply with the sophisticated environment. Her gaze was fixed on Emily, and before anyone could react, she hurried across the room, heading directly toward the woman who had endured so much hardship. Henry noticed the tension in Emily's body, which stiffened upon seeing the stranger. "Emily," the woman exclaimed, her voice shaking. "It's me, your sister." Guests exchanged confused glances as Emily, in shock, let Jack slip into Henry's arms and move toward her sister. "Clara, where have you been?" The incredulity was evident on her face. Clara, tears in her eyes, replied, "After our parents separated, I got lost. I tried everything to stay afloat, but a blow left me with nothing. I was dragged to the depths and ended up on the streets. I couldn't find you." Emily felt a whirlwind of emotions rising. "I thought you were dead. The last time I heard from you, you said you needed help. I looked for you." Her words spilled out, laden with pain and longing. The sisters embraced tightly, as if wanting to never let go. Henry watched the scene, feeling a mix of joy and concern. He approached, placing a comforting hand on Emily's back. "Clara, you're here now. That's what matters." Hearing Henry's voice, Clara turned to him, realizing he was a crucial part of her sister's life. "You're Henry?" Clara asked, a look of gratitude and curiosity in her eyes. "I've heard so much about you. You really helped my sister find her way." "I did what I could," Henry replied humbly. "But it's her strength that truly makes the difference." Clara looked around the restaurant, filled with life and hope. "I'd like to help. I have experience in management and always dreamed of starting a business to help people in difficult situations. I can do that." Henry and Emily exchanged surprised glances. "You have experience?" Emily asked, intrigued. "What happened to you?" "I was a businesswoman. I had a small chain of stores, but a blow from a partner left me with nothing. I was deceived and with the debt, lost it all. Life on the streets was a nightmare, but I never lost hope of starting over. Now that I've found you, I feel like maybe that's possible. Together we can do something great," Henry said, excitement building in his voice. "We can create a support network that not only provides jobs, but also offers a home for those in need. You could be the key to making this dream a reality." Emily, with tears of joy in her eyes, held her sister's hand tightly. "Let's do this. Let's help others find a path just like we found ours." The three exchanged glances, a new bond forming between them. The ceremony, which had once been merely a celebration of a restaurant, was now transforming into a symbol of renewal and hope. With the strength of their unity, they were on the verge of creating a network that could change lives. Henry smiled, envisioning a bright future where love, solidarity, and teamwork could transform not only their lives, but also the lives of countless others in need of a fresh start.